Hi, I'm Leanne, and I'm an ENFJ. We didn't plan that, obviously.
You switched real quick.
I thought you were gonna.
I'm sorry, I'm still in my goofy
I thought I was
mood.
like, SE, he's got this. He's just gonna pick it up.
Yeah. Edit this out. So, hi, I'm Juan. I'm an ESTP.
Which is surprising. No, I'm just kidding. We were just singing to Disney songs for a while. So today it's actually probably a month or so ago.
Yeah.
We were having a discussion about fantasize. Well, first we called it fantasizing, and then we were like, that might provoke the wrong kind of impression from people that we wanted from this video. But we were initially talking about fantasizing, which basically we meant daydreaming, or going into our imagination. And we were talking about our different experiences of it, and I just found that topic to be really fascinating from a personality perspective. It's hard to say how much of it is personality related and how much is there are other factors, like, if you know your Enneagram type, if you know your instinctual variance. I feel like there might be multiple layers to like how a person manifests, like, or daydreams, and what they even believe it means to daydream. Because as we discovered from having a conversation about this, which is why I found it so interesting, is that we have kind of, I guess, different definitions of daydreaming. Me as an ENFJ and you as an ESTP, and just as individuals, we just we have different definitions about it, and we go about it differently. So yeah, we wanted to unpack that a little bit.
Let's do it.
So, I guess the question is, you being a sensing dominant, like, a lot of people might think that, oh, well, they're very, like, concrete. They're probably not very, well, intuitives are, like, known to be imaginative. It's actually one of the words that describes intuition as being imaginative. But you have a very big imagination, and I think it's really interesting how it manifests for you. So I guess my question would be, how do you think that, or how does daydreaming work for you? What does it look like? How does your imagination play out as an ESTP?
Sorry, I was about to yawn. I don't hold it.
You can yawn.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. So, daydreaming. Well, for me, it's a few things. So, like we talked about earlier, as an example of if I was driving, even before in the last video.
I feel like a lot of things you do revolve around when you're driving.
Yes, that's what I was about to bring up. I was like, that one video, I talked about how, like, I'm always aware, like hyper aware when I'm driving. I'm like looking at everybody and looking where their hands are on their wheel, where their tires are facing. But when I'm driving, say, like a long road, just like I see ahead and I see no end, and we're driving for 4 hours straight on the same road, it's like I go on cruise control and I'm on like autopilot, like my body is, and I'll start daydreaming. And I've done that a lot. I've noticed that a lot, and I'm still in my body. I'm still aware of like what's going on the road, so I still can change lanes, and like it's just that it's like I know that I'm going to be on this road for 53 point whatever miles, so I don't have to worry about turns or paying attention to the GPS. So then I go into the autopilot mode, and when I'm there, I've had instances where I would daydream about like I was telling you earlier, even we were talking about it, like aliens invading the planet and like UFOs coming down and shooting, and I'm just imagining, like, while I'm driving, I'm like avoiding all these laser beams and drifting in and out.
So the thing is, though, you're imagining that like in your like in your physical environment that's in front of you, you're
Mhm.
imagining things happening.
Yeah. So I guess the one way I would put it is like, it's like a second layer that gets added on to what I'm doing.
Wow.
It's a layer of like my imagination that just goes on top of what I'm experiencing. So I'm still doing what I'm doing, but it's just an added layer of, whatever I'm daydreaming. So that'll even happen like.
So do you feel like when you say you're daydreaming, like, I don't know, like how clear is that
Super clear.
vision?
Like clear, like sometimes
Like you
it's
feel like
scary
you can
real.
almost see.
I
Like,
know I can see it. Yeah,
wow.
it's extremely real. Like I can see it. It's as if I'm watching a movie, and my eyes are like the projectors, and it's going out to the real world. Like I'm seeing it.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Is
even
that-
like
No. Go ahead.
oh, because and even like if I'm not talking about work, say I'm talking about like sitting. I'm not work driving. Say I'm talking about sitting at work, and say like sometimes like I'm pulling a report and it's just loading, and it's like that ring of death, just going, going, and going. Sometimes it times out, and I do it again. I'm just like staring at the screen. Then I'll start again, and I think that's the common theme is that when I start daydreaming, it's not like I'm dreaming some random thing that's like out there, like I'm like all of a sudden I'm in the water somewhere. No, it's I feel like it's always associated with whatever I'm doing. Like it expands from that. So if I'm sitting on my computer and I start daydreaming, I'll daydream like, oh man, what if like, and sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's scary stuff. Sometimes I don't really control it. Sometimes it's like, what if like the building like caught on fire? I have to like jump out the window and scale down the wall and try to catch the railing underneath like a few floors down, and how I would do that. And that would start happening. I would start acting out these things in my imagination, but it's not anything I'm purposely trying to do. It just like happens by itself.
So for the record, I don't know if I mentioned this in any previous video, but for those of you who know Enneagram, I am a 2 with 1, SOSP, instinctual variant type, and you are we're pretty certain, a 7 with 6, and not as certain about the instinctual variant, but I think maybe SPSO, but yeah, so, from what that you're saying with that last part about the worst case scenarios, that was a little bit six-ish. That's the reason why I brought that up. Just because, like, I do, I have a 6 fix, and I do worst case scenarios, but for me, it's very different. Like, it's not like that. It's usually not that visual, but sometimes, like, my mind's eye, which is different than seeing it in reality. Like, and I always wondered. I find it really fascinating because I've heard people say that they have visions, and I've always wondered what exactly is meant by that, because knowing the differences we have in cognition, like, it's very interesting to me to think about how we might perceive what a vision is. Because I know for myself, like, it's very hard for me, even from what you're saying about seeing things in reality, like, kind of like putting what do you call it? Like an added layer on top of
my reality.
Your reality. Like, that's not something that I ever do. Like, that's very, not weird, but it's weird to me because I don't do it, you know?
Yeah.
So
I do it a lot. So
yeah, I definitely wonder about when people say, "Oh, I had a vision." I'm like, "What do you mean you had a vision?" That's really hard for me to, like, I'm like, to me, a vision, any visions I've had has been completely in my head, that I visualized in my head, like, reversed. So it's not like I'm visualizing it outward, I'm visualizing it in my mind's eye. Yeah. Yeah. So it's very different.
Very. Because I would compare sometimes, like you remember Final Destination? You remember, like, he would see like things would happen out, and then all of a sudden he's pulled back into his reality, like, wait, what? And he was kind of like confused, like, oh crap, that's about to happen, like something like that. But that's how I would, like, think of it. Yes.
I was just the other day, I did, like, I never have stuff like that happen most of the time, and when I do, I don't know, because I'm nearing 30 now, which sounds crazy, but, like, I wonder if my extroverted sensing being the tertiary position as an ENFJ, if it's I don't know, manifesting or like coming closer to the surface. And I was like sitting the other day and I was like, for some reason, I was just imagining like a giant cockroach like in my room. And I was like, oh, that's gross. I have no idea why I'm thinking about that. Like, but yeah, Death of the Salesman comes to mind. The Arthur Miller story. I think he turned into a cockroach. I can't really remember the context of that, but yeah, so it's weird.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I very, like, it's weird. Like, sometimes I feel like I do that stuff, like, consciously. I do it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, and that's, like, me trying to get in my head and, like, think about it. Or I'm trying to imagine, like, scenarios happening. Or, like, say if, like, I watched a movie. If I watched a movie, and then if I go into, like, daydream mode, sometimes, like, I'll replay the movie, but, like, differently. Like, how I would have it done. Or, like, what I think should have happened. Or, like, a second ending final scene, like what it, like the that when they do like the extra bonus features of DVDs and they do that, I feel like sometimes that'll happen automatically for me too. I'll just start thinking about stuff and it'll just unfold differently than what I know it's supposed to be.
Do you ever feel like it interferes with your perception at all, or?
No, because I feel like I only do the daydream part. I only do if I'm on like if I have to sit and wait, somehow. But I have to like sit and wait. Like if I'm on like driving a long winding road or not long straight road, or if I'm waiting for something to load, or like I'm just sitting staring at the ceiling doing nothing
this
like
is
that.
like a way of entertaining.
Yeah. If I'm like I guess that's the it's like entertaining myself. Like that's what I'll do.
It's funny because we were just listening to the Personality Hacker podcast about what was it? Something. Gosh, I can't even remember what it was about. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. It was the one about like EPs and how to kind of like make sure that you have a good foundation as an EP growing up
being
and
bored.
being able to entertain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that made me think about that a lot. How you always talk about imagining stuff.
I never get bored.
Yeah, and that always confused me because like people like EPs, especially ESTPs, like the way they're portrayed online is like, oh, they get bored, they're like super low attention spans, like they can't. And so when you're always like, I never get bored. I'm like, how do you never get bored? Like, and then you told me about your imagination and how that works for you.
Yeah, because I can do that. Like if I'm doing it on purpose, say for example, then I'm replaying something I've already done in my head. But I'm thinking like, oh, maybe I should have done it this way or that way, or let's try it this way, or I'll just replay it. I'll just think about funny. It's kind of like when you go on YouTube and you go to the rabbit hole watching a bunch of different videos. Even if you've already seen the videos, it's like doing that in my head. Or I go down this rabbit hole where I'm just like, okay, well, let's think of funny stuff that I've seen or music. Like especially some music, I'll like just start playing the songs in my head and it just doesn't stop. It'll just keep going until I'm pulled away from it again. And I feel like that. So yeah, so I don't get bored.
That's so cool.
But I mean, yeah, I guess it's also like they were saying in that podcast, like how when you're young, putting them in like a place where they are bored, so they figure out how to entertain themselves instead of distracting themselves and like doing something, like sitting on a screen or something. Because I was never able to do that. I just had to entertain myself, and that was either with like creating this like vast movie with my sisters, even though they hated me for it. I'm like, all right, so just pretend you're holding like laser swords and create this whole narrative and this whole story, and I'll do that with them every day. And I would just put everything that I saw in my head and try to make it like a game and in real life with them. And that kept us entertained. And I feel like I still do that a lot. I'll just do that. Yeah.
I can attest to that. So it's interesting to me. I was thinking about this for myself as an NI user. Because usually the stereotype somewhat is that I think it's more of a stereotype for NE users, especially NE like INFPs, INTPs, and NPs. It's more of a stereotype that they're like zoning out in their head, like kind of like aloof. But no, I mean INFJs, any intuitive dominant or actually, I would say probably more so introverts, but yeah. So there is a stereotype that this is like intuitives, like they kind of like are more dreamy and they're daydreamy and like in their heads. But the way I daydream, like I was telling you earlier, it's more of a philosophical. Like when I go into my NI, it's not really like I'm and this could be my related to my instinctual variant. I'm a social, and I'm not very like I'm not like fantasizing about situations so much. And that is also probably more of an FENI or an NIFE, ENFP, INFP thing. But I'm just not, I'm thinking more about ideas and concepts and throwing them around, and they're usually kind of void of like human, like it's usually like it's overly philosophical, like there's not like a really dreamy quality to those kinds of thoughts, except for there is one exception, and that's when I meet someone that I really like. I've noticed this about myself. It's a really bizarre. I think it's bizarre. I've never had anyone describe that they do this, but I'm sure someone does. It's kind of hard to put into words, but I'm gonna give it a whack at it. Is that when I meet someone new who I'm really like interested in, like an individual, for instance, like you, or even a friend who I'm really interested in, I will sometimes like try to shift perspectives into that person's eyes, and then like try to see myself through that person's eyes. And for some reason, I find that extremely like interesting. I think it's because like I want to know. There's a part of me that really wants to know what that person is feeling and thinking, so I can like, I guess, appease maybe even my anxieties and like how I'm feeling. So like, for instance, like before we first started dating, and you know, like I would like, this is almost a little embarrassing, but I'm gonna go for it. Like I would go through my Facebook or like social platforms, or look at certain things in my room, or you know, walk through a certain like path or environment, and try to like put myself into your shoes as if you were experiencing that thing, and try to imagine how you could react to going through that. And for some reason, like, and with music, like listening to a song that meant something to me, and then pretending that I'm you experiencing the song that I want you to hear, and then like listening to it over and over, like, and just keep listening to it, and just getting like this like weird high off of like imagining what that would be like.
Yeah.
For it to be you, and how that impression it might have on you. Yeah. So that's like a way that it plays out for me, and I can just get really like focused. Like it's like I want to focus on that like completely, with like zero distractions. Like and hyper focus on it, and it's just like I could like stay there. And I guess that to me is like kind of a fantasy thing. Like it's not like I'm playing out images in my mind of like, well, this situation could happen, like in any user be like, or this could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen, or these things could connect, or these things could connect. But it's more just, you know, the shifting into another person's like eye, or having the other, pretending that I'm in another person's eyes, and they're seeing something that I want them to see about me. And so I feel like that's the way that I kind of, I guess I would say like the daydreamy part of me. It's not just the intuitive part of me that goes into daydream mode. Like it's like a very specific activity that I do when like through my intuition, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool though.
Thank you.
That's pretty cool. Seeing how other people are, and how they like perceive the things that you do, or
Yeah, which is obviously it's funny because obviously like how can I really know how they would perceive it? But it's not, and that's the thing is I know I don't know, but I'm just what is captivating to me is thinking and idealizing about what they might think.
Yeah.
Like, you can do that in a negative sense when you like think, well, this person might think this about me. They might hate me. They might blah 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 blah. I guess this is kind of like that, but it's like a flip side. Like, maybe this person could think I'm this kind of like awesome. Maybe this person could think like I'm really cool. Maybe they could think I'm really funny. Maybe it's kind of like a reverse side of that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I feel like that pretty much sums up my take on my quote unquote daydreaming and how that works for me as an NI user.
Me too.
I feel like that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully or at least I will, and you may be featuring in a couple of videos coming down the pike, and we look forward to talking with you.
Talking to the screen.
Hope you all have a good evening and good rest of the week.
What about a disclaimer?
Oh, you have a disclaimer.
I do.
Go for it.
So my squinty eyes are because my glasses are broken, and really, I need to fix them.
You
and
really
this will
felt like that was
it's important because
should we show the glasses?
Yeah,
they're pretty.
Because squinty eyes, kind of,
Yeah,
bad
I think it's been probably like So it's been like how long? I don't know. It's been a while.
Oh, this is how it should be, but it falls off my ear.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, broken.
So now you know the very important fact.
That's why my eyes are squinty.
Juan was squinting.
Not for any other medicinal reasons.
Absolutely not. All right, well, have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.